Hey, overthinkers. It's Sweets and Lisa.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going, Lisa? What's happening?
I'm just sitting here thinking, I wonder if I've worn this shirt yet. I feel like I have.
Can I tell you, I know that I've worn this shirt at a different, but it is so comfortable that I'm just kind of like, I don't care.
I mean, we're here. We're not worried about, what's happening underneath,
No,
it's just
it's
this part. And
we're worried about our brains, not about
yes,
outfits. At least
that
not today.
is, that is. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain. So
You could. It's just
I
nice
could.
that you don't.
Yes, I'm just not going to. It's been a busy month. And I was looking forward to just chatting today, which is great. So
Yeah,
get my
same here.
mind off of some things. So yeah.
Love it. Well, I have a word
How
for
about
us. I have a topic for us, a word. So the word is fear.
you?
And the context is, I mean, not the whole context, but just kind
Yeah.
of where it's coming from, is I know that we've talked before about people pleasing. And I
Yeah.
think that when we went into that conversation, there was some aspect of fear in
Mhm.
there. But I'm wondering if we can chat about how much or to what extent do you feel like behavior is motivated by fear?
Yeah, I we can go deep in that for sure. So I th- I think about it like this. I think that we will do more. We will sit in something un or that causes us more pain than hop over to something that might give us liberation because the fear is so palpable and so big. So, do I think that fear can be is the motivator for most of our behavior? Yes. I mean, it can't there's no I mean, it is. Most of the time I think we're motivated and it ties into people pleasing, I guess, cuz right, a lot of the times we're afraid of what will people think or what will happen when, right? Or those types of phrases that run in your brain. And I think like trying to talk yourself out of that is hard to do because when your brain gets so hijacked by something, you're trying to have to work harder to like feed it truth, feed it nourishment to say, no, that's not real. And if you've had a lifetime of stories that have told you, yes, it is this way, it feels very hard to someone who's trying to. So, like I always say, like, if you can get a community of people to start to feed you the truth, or even one person, whether it's a therapist, that's actually what starts to, I think, help. Trying to navigate those thoughts, I think, by yourself, if you've been conditioned so hard, like wired for the fear piece, it's harder to do. I think it's harder to do without someone saying, look at there's another way, right? Like, let me show you another route that it hasn't turned out the way you think it has. There's another example of that, right? I don't know. Like, if you think about if you've come from a family that was trauma induced, hypothetically saying, right? And you knew no different. And then all of a sudden you made a friend who has a different family system and you start going over there and all the things that maybe you were afraid of, you see maybe this family that's healthy, right? Are doing it. It starts to push at your narratives and you're just like, oh wait, there might be another way. And that's exposure to what helps, I think, the brain kind of push back some of that fear. But I think that's very hard to do if you haven't had any exposure to something different.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I love that you brought up the idea of stories because I do think it's so much of the fear is related to like the storytelling that we do in our brains about what we think could happen, what might happen, what if this happens, and then you're acting, or I'll say I'm acting sometimes on that,
Yeah.
which also connects to another thing that you talk about a lot that is helpful for me when I think of like a scarcity mindset. Would
Mhm.
you mind talking?
Yeah. I think when your brain is hijacked or dysregulated, we go into a level of scarcity. That's just a reaction. So, ways you know you're dysregulated in real time are you feel a level of urgency, right? You get an email and it hijacks you and you want to respond right away because you want that feeling to go away. Scarcity is very much you start to look like that can't happen. The person will never, no, it can't do this. Again, it goes back, if you've had to kind of just wing it on your own, your outlook is different. You're going in already hyper vigilant. And so you're watching for the things that could go wrong. You're never looking for the things that are like, it's abundant here, or that was a really great conversation. You're mostly trying to collect things that that person might have looked at me badly or whatnot, and kind of having those dynamics. And I think that that's what makes it, that's where the scarcity model is. But sometimes that's the thing that keeps someone safe, right? Is always thinking along those lines, because that's the only thing they've ever known. So knowing anything or doing anything different to that might feel like them losing a sense of control. And it's interesting. It's because that's actually, as we both know, and that's Brene Brown's work too, that's the healing piece, is if you can actually not try to control every aspect or pinpoint collecting all these things in a scarcity mindset. It's like, it's actually the birthplace of, connection or whatnot.
Yeah, it's super helpful for me. I think in a leadership lens lately, that's something that I've been thinking about in terms of like how I'm making decisions and trying to get at the root of the story that I might be telling, or the story that I think sometimes like we collectively tell. Like I feel like culture sometimes, as we've talked about, has a story associated with it too, and that groups of people can rally around a story of scarcity or a story of abundance. And how to disrupt or support a sense of abundance when that culture is set on a story of scarcity. Like there's not enough. There's never enough time. There's never enough support. There's never enough resources, and how as a leader can we help to support a different story? Number one, through our actions, by providing an abundance of, and starting to disrupt those stories by just actions that support different thinking. But then also, as we've talked about, how difficult it can be to change those thought patterns and live in abundance, because it takes away that story that, to your point, you just said, feels safe, right? Because then there's a reason that maybe things aren't going, that's the reason things aren't going the way they should be, instead of looking at another possible cause for things not going well. Yeah. And how scary it can be to change that mindset from scarcity to, I have what I need, we have what we need, we can do different things because we have what we need. Mm-hmm. Why is that so scary? I get that it changes your story, and that change is always hard, right? And reframing is always hard, but like it feels like it should be easier to,
Yeah.
almost like a deficit mindset when we talk about students or people that in our lives, like we tend to focus on that, like what needs to be fixed or what's not working, as opposed to like, these are all the things that are working. How do we move forward from a presumption of or abundance, or, that things are good, as opposed to the things that aren't so good?
Yeah. And you know what, for me too, I think like a couple of things come to my mind is like, we don't do this. I think we've talked about this too. I think a lot of the times we're questioning other people's ideas, but we're not questioning why we're thinking a certain thing. I did this activity 2 weeks ago. I had a coach come in and do some PD for me, professional development. And before I started though, I had done an activity of like, I'd like to know what beliefs you've had that you later found out are not true, and right, caused you a little bit of disbelief. And the one I always say, and you've heard me say this, is growing up, my mom always used to say you get sick with wet hair. It's not true. And yet
mine too, to be fair.
It's ingrained in me. And amongst so many other different rules, we have mindsets around money, right? Don't spend this. Others are like, no, spend and enjoy. And like how you should live your life, what leisure should look like, or you shouldn't have any leisure. Mm-hmm. And so I had the team do that right before I got started. And I just made the statement when they were talking about all these things, like even things like you shouldn't go swimming after you've eaten or whatnot. And there we were all laughing because some of the things that came up, we were like, oh, that's not true. And I was like, are you sure? Right. I was asking, I was like, no, I really actually think that's true. And I forgot what it was now, and it's too bad. But my point being is, I made the statement is everything that you believe or the things that you've been taught will be brought into any conversation or decision we make together. In addition to the system beliefs and narratives. So just be very clear, like it's twofold. It is not only the things that, because a system can have beliefs like, we can say we do hard things, but actually anytime something hard happens, the system, right, we're saying we shouldn't do those things. And then the belief systems that you have also contribute. And what I simply said to them is like, I want that all at the table. So I'm not interested in compliance. I'm interested in going through. And that might mean I might say things that could potentially rub you the wrong way. The thing is if you want to, when you talk about fear and non-scarcity, people have to be ready to hear the truth and a posture of, and I think I'm a little worried that the more life we all live, the more it's like, no, I'm here, like, it's actually better if I'm just more comfortable. And I think if you're just looking to be comfortable in conversations and not press on that fear bubble, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about is that maybe abundance of safety and honesty first, like that concept of psychological safety, right? So that
Yeah.
people can put their fears on the table.
Yeah, but some people never will. I mean, that's the other thing, depending on, like some people, their fears are pretty palpable. And the other thing is too, Lisa, I always think about the optimal, what is it called? The optimal stress curve of, it's basically how I can do 7 things and not be stressed at all. And somebody else can do one and it like is almost broken them, right? Because they're so stressed or whatnot. And so on top of fear, you also have this real reality is not all of us can handle the same amount of things.
Yes, everyone has a different tolerance.
Yes. And that contributes to somebody's fear because they're like, I can't handle that. Where somebody else's is like, why you been a big baby? That's like super easy, you know? And that for me is hard because that presses on my leadership when someone sometimes is super overwhelmed about something. I have to always remember. I mean, I keep it right here because in my mind I was like, oh, buck up, Bronco, that's like nothing, right? But then I have to remember that everybody is wired differently. They have different stress levels, they have different fear levels, and so I come into it trying very hard with a posture of empathy, right?
So I wonder if we think about like accomplishing things, because this is really where it's coming from. It's like making decisions or accomplishing things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just moving forward with goals, right? I wonder if we could do better, if I could do better with acknowledging that everyone's in a different place in terms of their emotional readiness to
Yes.
move forward with change. And just as we would do with students, which I think I forget sometimes, those good, like instructional practices,
Mm-hmm.
is it an important step to scaffold the change, being clear at the end, but scaffolding, like if you're at this point or, and you're feeling more afraid about this change, on the more afraid side, then here's a smaller step maybe that you can take. But if you're feeling brave and moving faster feels better for you, then here's the step you might be able to take. And just acknowledging that everyone is in a different place with regard to their tolerance or ability to handle the fear associated with change, because I do think that that's right. I mean, we know this, that like change induces fear most of the time. Although change can be exciting, I
Mm-hmm.
still think when it comes to things that hold us back from change, it's more fear, right?
Absolutely. I would say it's definitely more fear. I mean, even if you have somebody like, I think trust comes a long way, but I do think in how you do it too, if you can start something small and scale it, I'm a firm believer is that you start tiny and then you scale it up, but even then, that doesn't mean that someone isn't going to be afraid. Because most of the time, I think fear does come, the root of it is, as we say, will I be able to handle that?
Yeah.
Will I be able to come out from the other side? And we come up against all the things that, like, in our lives and being like, one more thing. And usually the answer is yes, but we don't set ourselves up for that. The worry, I think in today's world, people are worrying about a lot more things than they ever have. So just
It
because
does
life,
feel like that. It does feel like there's a lot more fear and worry and anxiety because I don't, and even with, children, which I think is the hard part for the adults too, because as they are working through their own emotions, the kids are displaying so many more intense emotions also. And
hmm
the regulation that adults in schools have to do right now is intense. The self-regulation, the regulation or the support of the regulation of the kids in there, the parents.
hmm
There's a lot that goes along with being an educator right now.
I'm telling you, I just read this article this morning about the relationship quotient, and her name is, she's a Stanford
Is that
professor.
Isabel Howe?
Yes, Isabel Howe. Thank you very much. And the article was really great, but the move here, and we'll see it more and more because I think the reason we're really burnt out, right, is because we actually as connected as we are, we have to practice and get more skilled in the relationship quotient, right? Is really, I think a study in the article talked about that at this point, percentage wise, chat gpt, gosh, I wish I had the article in front of me. I would say it's like more empathetic than humans at this point. I forgot what the data point said. So let's really think through that. We are wired for co-regulation. And so when you're thinking about anything, even in fear, if we're already feeling like less connected, less relationally in like adequate and all of those things, the fear bubbles even seem bigger. There's more burnout, like people are more burnt, or there's a feeling of more burnout, and you're asking yourself like from what? But I think it's not from what, it's from the fact that we're not as engaged with each other because
That's
we
so
need each other.
interesting. I do think fear of others. Like
Yes.
I see us becoming more afraid of other people and of
Yes.
interactions and children becoming more afraid of interacting with other kids.
Yes.
And, even before AI, the idea that you have a social worker, there's a person there for you for that purpose to
Yes.
put your worries and anxieties and stuff there. And then the rest of life and all of your other relationships need to be without those things, even though
Yes.
that's not the basis for a healthy relationship. It's never going to be absent of conflict and fear and hard and true emotions. That's like ringing so true to me because AI is programmed to be
hmm
empathetic and sycophantic. Like it's programmed for that.
You said it in one of our podcasts where, right, uh, AI is always being nice and empathetic to you, and you're not actually hearing someone tell you the truth, right? And so people are getting less and less, they're becoming more and more afraid to actually have these interactions for somebody to tell them, like, and it's not always bad, but like just having a conversation, having raw emotion, but you don't realize how amazing, like, and you know this, I had a dear friend who passed away, right? I reached out text to let people know, and think about the rawness. I knew you were going to call me because you're one of my dearest friends. I knew another friend, my friend Jenny, called me, my friend Dina, and all of you called. And I knew when you all called that I would be a blubbering idiot, right? And I could not control it, and I'm not kidding. Initially I was like, I want to, like, I got to be better than this, I can't, and I couldn't. And that's actually where I feel fear dismantles itself, when you can actually say, no, I'm going to actually bawl my eyes out, it won't be forever, but right now I'm going to do that. And we need more and more partnerships like that, where somebody can just feel like that relational piece is there, that I can actually co-regulate with you, right? And I can lean on you for a little bit and kind of go from there. So,
Well, and thank you for saying I'm happy I was there for you and that you did call or text.
yes.
But I wonder if And this is like a weird circular kind of thing. The wonder I have right now is if the fear is bubbling up because we have a sense that we can control things through these types of therapeutic relationships. Like there's a place for that fear to go, and that's going to help us dismantle fear everywhere else. That doing that relationship or having that support means like you should be able to not have those things and everywhere else, as opposed to, like there's always an interventionist, there's always a mediator, there's always somebody that's going to step in to support some kind of conflict. Or if there isn't, then I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to engage in it.
Oh, and
I
sorry,
think
go ahead.
about kids even, and how often we intervene and engage when kids are having conflict, as opposed to letting them in a healthy way. Obviously, we don't want them physically hurting each other, but like how often can we stand back and let them engage in healthy conflict with each other
Yeah.
and work things out, because it does build those muscles,
Yes.
and the muscles atrophy. And when you don't have muscle, of course you're going to be more afraid, right? When you don't have that, when you haven't proven to yourself that you can handle things, then you're going to be afraid to handle things, right?
And you'll go to other things, right? You will go to doom scrolling. You will go to your addictions because you will want to fill anytime anything bad happens, you're going to want to fill that with a dopamine. Where like Dopamine Nation and it's Amy. One day I'll get all the names right. Lebec, like but she
Yeah.
talks a lot about, right, when you do hard things, you actually that's the dopamine you want. That's the real stuff. And I think to your point is we're going out there and sometimes even reading a book and being like, okay, this is what conflict is, or getting someone else when it's and we still even think that that's the way that it should go, and it doesn't. Life is super super messy, and there is no destination when it comes like involvement. Human beings are like, they're the most fascinating, we're fascinating creatures, and it's not so cut and dry and said, this is the way I'm going to say this and you're going to say this, and that's how it's going to work, and we're going to all feel great. Sometimes you leave conversations feeling messy, and I think what trips us up is even what trips our kids up is because everything in social media looks so amazing, is that like you will have bad days, and that's actually really normal. You will get mad at someone or you'll work it out, and we're doing that less and less. And our fear, or when something difficult or right that we're not used to happens, we retreat. Like the article was even talking about how most kids are now connecting with AI chatbots, and they're having a better time doing that than, of course, right? I'm not one of those people who feels like AI should be aborted or whatnot. I like the idea of having gems, but like having this idea of AI work for us, like in the stuff that could leave us more time with relationships, it's actually doing the reverse. It's keeping us like further away, because people are like, well, I'm just going to ask chat, I'm having a bad day, make me feel better, versus sitting
Yeah.
down and having a cup of coffee. Like my friend today was like, she wasn't sure what I was doing later. And she was like, if you need me, I'll just come sit with you. She was like, I'll skip pickleball and we'll do that. Those are the things that life is made of for.
Yeah. So I'm thinking through from where I started,
Mhm.
what I need to take away from this, from my life right now, where the context was, is that I need to just acknowledge that people have that fear inside, and I need to be ready to support with thoughts or ideas about how people might begin, a change, or begin whatever it is, right? With small steps, or at least coach or help and support that way. But also, it makes me even stronger in my belief that we do need to keep moving forward, and we do need to keep pushing ourselves to have those difficult conversations and engage in difficult and hard work,
Yes.
because we're consistently being confronted with an easier way to do things.
Hmm.
Technology continues to make things less friction, give things less friction. And the easier things become, I think, and the more we take advantage of it, the more afraid we are going to get
Hmm.
about our capability and our competence. And we know that like being a confident human being comes from being a capable and competent human being that can handle a lot of different things.
Yes, and I will add just one last part too. Johan Hari's book Lost Connections and his other one Stolen Focus, but he talks about this level of autonomy and purposeful living, right? This idea of actually like doing hard things, like feeling like you have a purpose of moving forward that directly impacts mental health. When you don't feel like your opinion matters or anything like that matters, excuse me, it increases depression. So it's the research is very clear on that. It's not the only data point, but there's tons. Like we actually do, we our purpose in life, as much as I joke about my makeup palettes, it's not just meant for leisure. We are really like destined, like we're required to be purposeful in what we're doing. So it makes a difference for others. Like,
Yeah, I think that's the gift of education as a career. I think there are many careers like that, in service
yeah.
industries and things like that. But I think you can find purpose in whatever you've chosen to do. But it reminds me as a leader, how are we encouraging that independence with all of our folks, right? Making sure that it's clear where autonomy is and where engagement lies and where we can
Yeah.
let go of our control and
Yes.
fear, right? And encourage people to do what they're best at doing and encouraging them to lean into hard things and supporting through those fearful moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how we grow together. I love it. I love it.
I needed this today. Thank you.
No, no, this was a good one.
And we are here for anything else that you might want to think through or have us think through for you. So please keep on sending in your ideas. We're looking into getting some guests. So if you know of people that you think would be interesting to talk to, we love talking to all kinds of people. So send us their names.
It's true.
But for now, we're going to close up some tabs in our head and we are going to give ourselves some grace for this next week.
Till next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.